So this movie features a girl named Natalie, who's shown in a hotel room with her clients. Basically, Natalie is a prostitute, and she's there to get intimate with an older guy. But before that happens, she expresses her sexual desires in some pretty natural ways. Once she wraps up her work, she heads home. After that, we see the movie's other main character, who's hanging out with his friends at a restaurant. His friends are chatting away, but he's not really paying attention. He wasn't really paying attention to what she was saying, and feeling annoyed, he went to the washroom. But it turns out he didn't just go there to escape her. He actually needed to cool off from the heat he was feeling inside. So while he was in there, he was getting a little pleasure. However, as he stepped out, his best friend JP walked in. The thing is, Murch was a bit of a sex addict, and he was using an app to hook up with different girls. JP knew about this, so he figured out what Murch was really doing in that room. That's why he laid into him pretty hard the next morning. During breakfast, a girl contacts Mitt through the same app, and after that, they become intimate. Then Murch arrives at the office, where he gets a message from another girl. After heading home, he becomes intimate with that girl as well. This goes on, and throughout the day, he ends up being intimate with 4 or 5 different girls. One night, when Murch is at a bar, a girl named Thakur comes over and sits with him. Since Natalie is a prostitute, she starts using him to make her life easier, which makes Murch feel pretty uncomfortable. Here's a more colloquial and authentic. Why would some random girl want to get intimate with him? She definitely shares something about herself, saying she used to be a student at Stanford-educated. But here, she uses a fake name, claiming it's just a name she shares for work. She mentions her hourly rate, and hearing that makes him really anxious because he doesn't have enough money to support her service from Italy. This leads to a bit of an argument between them, making their first meeting pretty awkward. The next morning, when his friend is at the office, his boss approaches him. He calls him into his office and fires him. When Murch asks why, he says there are too many employees in the company now, and he's feeling overwhelmed. But even so, he doesn't stop trying to connect with people. Now, while looking for a new job, he goes to different places but doesn't find anything. So when he goes to the next company, he suggests, "How about I write an article first? If you like it, you can hire me." The boss agrees to this. After that, when he comes home with some stuff, his landlord starts threatening him for not paying rent. Sure. Here, since he hadn't gotten a ranking for the past 9 months, he was back home researching what topic to write an article on. While he was at it, an article about prostitution popped up on his laptop, and he thought, why not take Matt up there and write about this? So that night, he went to the same place in India where he had met Nat. After sitting there for a while, he realized it wasn't going anywhere. So he was about to leave when he spotted Nat outside. He ended up telling her about his article, but she was too busy to help him out. "Let me know if you need any further tweaks." "Sure." She refuses to give him her contact number. Later, when she was at her client's place, the client tried to kiss her, but she wasn't into it and didn't want to kiss any customer. This led to a bit of a scuffle, and somehow she managed to escape and get back home. When she got home, her roommate was there, so she filled her in on everything that happened. Her roommate then suggested that she should keep a guy around for protection in situations like that. This got her thinking, and she decided to stay in touch with him. Now, the next day, they meet up, and Net takes him to a woman's house. Actually, she was both a new prostitute and a tutor, which surprised Murch. He also finds out Net's real name. After that, she takes him to her place. They were talking to each other, but the reason Murch was with her was to learn more about Matt and to write a report. Net was with him to protect him while he was getting into the prostitution scene. That same night, in a hotel room, she got intimate with her client. While all this was happening, Murch was outside the room listening to her. After that, they grabbed their phones and headed home. The next day, they wanted to spend time together again. She was chatting with her client when some guy in the bar started acting up with her. So she let him know that if he kept being rude, her friend Mithu would really mess him up. Murch got nervous hearing that, and it actually scared the guy off. The thing is, Murch had no idea that she was using him as a threat. He just thought she was serious. Natalie is helping him out without any personal interest, and when you come outside, they end up arguing. Submit tells Mythili that he could have been in trouble because of her. Meanwhile, a girl messages him on the app, so he leaves Delhi right there. But this whole situation seems pretty weird to Natalie, so she decides to follow him. A little later, while he's getting cozy with a girl in the bar's restroom, Natalie catches him in the act. When he finally steps out, Natalie greets him with applause, and then they both end up in that same bar. We sit and chat, and that's when we find out that Mythili has hepatitis C, which is why she's always writing to health-related places, because she has to sit alone for a long time, and she really hates that. After that, he tells her about the tree down below and invites her to meet his family. Natalie agrees. The next day, we see Murch and Mattel heading to his house, and Natalie is shocked when she sees it because she thought she was going to a poor family's home. After that, we all hang out and have lunch together. There's this family in the middle where her brother and her little sister live. He goes goes to ask for a little money for lunch so he can manage his expenses for a few days, but they refuse to give him anything. Meanwhile, his sister overhears everything. After that, Natalie and her friend go out to celebrate after acing their college exams. When I ask her why she's working with this producer, Natalie tells me that back in college, she used to get close with different guys and would keep pictures of their private parts. One day, she showed her album to a friend, and after that, it spread like wildfire around campus. A bunch of bloggers even started making jokes about it online. So, whenever she searches for net release on the internet, it feels like a joke, and nobody seems to take her seriously anymore. That's when her past as a prostitute came back to haunt her. Later, Murch mentions that he'd heard about it too, but he didn't know it was her. After spending so much time together, Murch and Natalie had grown closer, and they started talking to each other at night. The next morning, they were both up and about. Then, they give some money for the net limit. At first, I can manage, but later he takes that money. After that, Natalie goes off for a checkup, and he ends up with that other girl. But he wasn't really into her, so he leaves her and goes to the clinic where Natalie has been sitting alone for a while. It turns out that Amir has started to really like Natalie. That same day, I go to my friend JP's place and tell him about Natalie, but he says she's not right for me. So they end up having an argument, and one time when Murch came back home after work, he was shocked to see his sister, dad, and the landlord there. Actually, JP had called them over because he was a bit of a troublemaker. They tried to explain things to him, but he wasn't having it. That day, he didn't give him any money because he wanted him to come back home instead. That same night, while he was hanging out with Italy at a bar, he started forcefully kissing Italy, which really ticked off the guy, and he got super mad at him. The guy gets hit pretty hard, and then there's this argument that goes down. Murchie says something like, "You're just using me for your own protection," and I kind of did the same thing. One of the friends chimes in, saying it's like doing prostitution. It's not just about necessity. She actually enjoys it. Then Mythily shoots back, "But you're using me for your article too. You have such low self-esteem that you resort to sex to hide from your fans." After that, they both just part ways. Then Murchie tries to write the article, but he can't write. So he goes to the boss of the company and says that he can't write an article on the topic he had in mind. He needs more time to think of another topic before he can write. The lady motivates him to write the article. That same night, he sits down to work and finally pours out his feelings. But she turns him down and tells him to leave. He goes home and starts looking at pictures of his hometown and Italy. That's when he decides he's going to write the article. After that, we see a scene a few days later. It's a match. He had written that article, and it got published in a magazine. People liked it so much that when he went to companies for job interviews, he landed a job right away. The articles made it clear that nobody should roll like that. It could lead to Twitter controversies. On the other hand, Murchie had gone back to stay with his family. They were having lunch when the doorbell rang. It was Mythily, who had come to apologize for her mistakes. She had also quit her job as a prostitute, so Murchie forgave her. After that, they kissed, and guys, that's how it went. That's it for the movie. If you enjoyed Race, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.